Just after midnight, the U.S. carrier continues on a steady course. Engines hum at a constant rhythm. The flight deck stays calm. Watch conditions are normal, no warnings, no heightened posture. Another routine transit is being logged minute by minute. Then, at 0:42, a new contact appears on surface radar. One distant track, slow-moving. Nothing unusual for these waters. Surface traffic is common here. Fishing vessels, commercial ships, patrol craft moving through at range. The contact is tagged and monitored. Nothing more. At 1:18, a second contact appears. Different bearing, similar signal type. Still far out. The watch officer checks the display again. Two contacts now, separated by open water. No direct convergence yet. No sudden burst of speed. Everything still falls within normal expectations. At 2:05, a third contact enters the picture. This one is closer and moving in faster than the others. Not openly aggressive, but purposeful. 3 contacts, 3 bearings, 3 separate tracks. Inside the Combat Information Center, the mood changes. Not to panic, but to sharper focus. Tracks are numbered. Bearings are repeated aloud. Distances are called, then confirmed. No one raises their voice. By 2:40, the pattern begins to take shape. The 3 contacts are no longer acting independently. Each adjusts course slightly. 5 degrees here, 7 degrees there. Small changes, almost unremarkable on their own, but enough to matter. CIC plots the geometry. The tracks are drawing together, not rushing, not charging, simply closing. At 3:10, the distance between the outer contacts and the carrier drops below the first advisory threshold. Still safe, still lawful, still quiet. On the bridge, nothing outward changes. The carrier maintains course and speed, no visible reaction. Deck crews continue their routines. At 3:30, the geometry says what everyone is already beginning to understand. The 3 surface contacts are forming a loose triangle, not a patrol line, not parallel tracking, but a deliberate shape. By 03:55, electronic sensors begin to sharpen the picture. The emissions are faint, but consistent. Military-style signatures, surface combatants, not civilian traffic. The contacts are reclassified. At 4:12, nationality is confirmed, Iranian Navy. No dramatic announcement rolls through the ship. No pause for effect. The information is logged, repeated once for confirmation, and passed up the chain. 3 Iranian naval vessels, 3 vectors, 1 carrier. At 4:20, closest point of approach calculations are updated. The numbers tighten, distances shorten. Still no immediate danger, but clearly not random. The watch team requests permission to hail. Authorization is given. At 4:28, the first radio call goes out. Clear, calm, professional. No response. The channel stays silent. The carrier does not turn. It does not speed up. It does not slow down. It keeps moving forward exactly as it has for hours, as though nothing has changed. But inside CIC, every display now matters. By 4:30, the geometry is unmistakable. The 3 Iranian ships are no longer simply approaching. They are positioning. Each holds a different range, a different bearing, a different angle, shaping the space around the carrier. Not close enough to collide, not far enough to dismiss. The sea is calm. The sky is clear. No visible show of force. Just 3 hulls, 3 vectors, and intent measured in degrees and minutes. This is no longer routine traffic. This is the moment when attention hardens into full concentration. From here on, every second will matter more than the one before. And the box has only started to close. At 4:40, the geometry tightens further. All 3 Iranian ships adjust speed within the same minute. Not a burst, just enough throttle to keep alignment. The carrier's speed does not change. The gap begins shrinking faster than earlier projections suggested. Updated vectors slide across CIC displays. Bearings are recalculated. Closest approach lines redraw in real time. The triangle sharpens. At 4:45, the easternmost ship shifts 6 degrees to port. A minor move, easy to overlook, but the effect is immediate. Open water on that side narrows. The shape feels intentional now. By 5:05, the southern contact mirrors the adjustment with a 5-degree starboard turn. The third vessel holds steady, anchoring the formation. Coincidence is no longer a believable explanation. At 5:30, projected closest approach falls below the advisory threshold. Still lawful, still technically safe, but the trend is moving the wrong way. The margin for error shrinks by the minute. On the bridge, the carrier still does not respond, no helm order, no course change. Its wake remains straight and unbroken. The message is silent but unmistakable. At 5:50, CIC requests another recalculation. The numbers confirm it. If all three contacts maintain present vectors, the carrier will be boxed in from three sides within minutes. Not trapped, but restricted. At 6:10, the next reshaping move becomes obvious. The western ship adjusts heading again, this time by less than 4 degrees. Subtle. Exact. The triangle compresses. The watch officer logs it. No alarm sound. No one announces danger. But every eye in CIC is fixed on the same section of the display. At 6:30, another hail is transmitted. Calm voice, standard wording, no accusation. This is a United States Navy warship conducting lawful transit. You are approaching at close range. State your intentions. The carrier waits. Nothing comes back. At 6:55, the Iranian ships hold course. They do not back away. They do not close aggressively. They simply maintain pressure. Silence stretches. By 7:10, the triangle is no longer loose. Each ship now occupies a specific role. One forward left, one forward right, one trailing offset. The geometry restricts maneuvering room without crossing any obvious red line. It is textbook gray zone pressure. At 7:40, sensors register another change. Iranian surface radars shift into sustained tracking modes. Not targeting, not the final step, but no longer passive. They are watching closely. CIC logs the shift, time-stamped and saved. At 800, distance updates come faster, every 30 seconds, every report tighter than the last. The water between hulls visibly shrinks. Still, the carrier does not move. No aircraft launch, no visible change in posture topside, only discipline. At 8:20, the box is nearly complete. From above, the formation would look clean and deliberate. 3 gray hulls arranged to narrow space without touching it. From the bridge, it feels different. The horizon is no longer open. Steel now occupies it on 3 bearings. At 8:40, CIC marks the moment. Box geometry established. The phrase is spoken once, evenly. Then the room returns to quiet concentration. At 8:50, projected exit lanes are reviewed. All are narrow. All would require coordination. None are impossible, but none are free. At 9 o'clock, the formation holds. No sudden moves, no visible display of force, no radio chatter, just steady, deliberate pressure. 3 Iranian ships, 1 American carrier, and a box that is now fully formed. The situation crosses an invisible line, not into immediate danger, but into inevitability. From this point on, every action will be interpreted. Every second will matter more than the one before. The tension does not spike. It settles, and that makes it heavier. At 9:20, the margin nearly disappears. Closest approach projections drop below normal navigational comfort. Not a collision risk, not yet, but close enough that every future correction carries consequence. The space between hulls is no longer abstract. It is visible. Distance updates now come every 15 seconds. Inside CIC, no one leans back. Every console is active. Every display synchronized. The room is quiet in the way only experienced crews understand. No wasted movement, no unnecessary words. On the bridge, the carrier remains steady. No change in heading, no change in speed. Its wake stays straight. At 9:25, the Iranian ships maintain precise spacing. Their movements are smooth, controlled, practiced. No rushing, no signs of panic. This is pressure applied gradually, deliberately, without open escalation. At 9:50, the forward left ship edges closer. Meters, not miles. The change is small, but it alters the geometry again. Open water narrows further. Still no visible response from the carrier. At 1000, the formation settles into parallel alignment on 2 axes. One ship slightly ahead, one slightly aft, one offset to the side. The box is no longer just closing. It is holding. The carrier is constrained without being stopped. At 10:20, a second hail goes out. Same calm tone, same clarity. This is a United States Navy warship operating in international waters. You are maneuvering unsafely. Acknowledge. The radio remains silent. No reply, no protest, no explanation. At 10:40, electronic emissions from the Iranian ships stabilize again. Still not targeting, still not crossing that line, but plainly intentional. Carrier systems capture everything. Frequencies, pulse widths, timing. The data builds. At 11:05, the command team reviews options. None are announced, none are visible. Every possible move is weighed against the same rule. Do not escalate unless forced. so the carrier holds exactly where it is. At 11:30, the distance between hulls drops into clear visual range. Details on the Iranian decks become visible through optics, antennas, railings, silhouettes moving slowly and deliberately. No obvious crowding on deck, no signs of disorder. Everything remains controlled. At 11:55, the tension reaches its peak without sound. The carrier is surrounded by intention, not direct action. This is not a test of firepower. It is a test of discipline. At 12:10, an order is given quietly. Spin up the helo. Below deck, engines begin turning. Rotor blades stay folded at first. The Seahawk does not launch yet, but the sound carries just enough to be noticed. The Iranian formation does not break. At 12:40, the geometry tightens one more time. The trailing ship inches forward, compressing the space behind the carrier. For a brief moment, all three vessels are exactly where they want to be. This is the apex. At 1300, the carrier's path is mathematically constrained on three sides. Any sudden move would demand immediate reaction from everyone involved. The margin for error is now measured in seconds. Still, the carrier does not turn. At 1325, the Iranian ships hold position. No further adjustments, no extra speed. The formation locks in. Time stretches. This is the most dangerous moment. Not because something is about to happen instantly, but because restraint is being tested under maximum pressure. No one blinks. No one flinches. At 1350, the Seahawk's rotors accelerate. The aircraft remains on deck, restrained and ready. The signal is subtle but unmistakable. Presence without provocation. At 1410, the Iranian ships hesitate, not in a way visible to the eye, but in the math. Their spacing wavers by meters. Their synchronization slips by fractions of a second. Tiny deviations, almost invisible, but real. At 1430, the tension reaches its highest point. 3 naval ships, 1 carrier, no shots, no exchange of words, just steel, geometry, and time. From here, something has to change. At 1438, the balance starts to shift. Nothing dramatic, no alarms, no abrupt maneuvers, just a subtle change in rhythm, small enough to miss if you are not watching carefully. Inside CIC, spacing indicators update. One of the 3 Iranian ships is no longer perfectly aligned. The deviation is slight, measured in meters, not ship lengths, but it breaks the symmetry. The box is no longer rigid. At 1445, the order comes. Launch the helo. The Seahawk lifts cleanly from the deck, rising past the carrier's island and moving out into open air. It does not rush. It does not climb high. It levels off low over the water, rotors steady, silhouette unmistakable. This is not escalation. This is presence. At 1505, the helicopter begins a wide orbit, keeping a safe distance from all 3 Iranian ships. Its sensors come online quietly. Cameras begin recording. Time, position, bearing, everything captured. No visible display of force, just observation. At 1520, a short, controlled laser marker appears on the water near the nearest Iranian ship. It does not linger. It does not threaten. It simply signals awareness. The message is exact: we see you. At 1540, the formation reacts, but not all at once and not decisively. The eastern ship holds course. The southern ship adjusts slightly to avoid the helicopter's path. The third ship, the one already out of alignment, lags again. The delay is minor, but it matters. At 1600, CIC confirms it. The triangle begins to lose its shape. The carrier moves forward exactly as before, steady, unchanged. Above it, the helicopter keeps its slow orbit. The pressure is still there, but now it's uneven, no longer perfectly controlled. At 1620, the Iranian ship that slipped out of alignment reduces speed slightly. Not a retreat, just hesitation. But the effect is immediate. The spacing shifts. A gap appears along one side of the formation. By 1640, the other 2 ships try to compensate, adjusting course to hold the structure together. But their movements are no longer perfectly synchronized. Each correction leads to another. The clean geometry starts to break apart. At 1700, the helicopter adjusts its position, still calm, still at a safe distance, but clearly present. Its sensors stay locked on the ships below. No radio calls, no warnings. The silence itself carries weight. At 1710, the gap becomes obvious on every display. For the first time since this began, the carrier has more room to maneuver. Not complete freedom, but enough to matter. By 1730, hesitation spreads through the formation. One ship shifts to keep distance from the helicopter. Another holds back to avoid getting too close to the carrier's bow. The structure can't hold without pushing too far. At 1745, the helicopter makes a slow, deliberate pass, then returns to its orbit. Everything is being recorded. Every move, every adjustment, every second. At 1800, the formation gives way. No sudden break, no dramatic turn. One ship eases off first, increasing distance. Seconds later, another follows. The third stops pressing forward. The box is open. The carrier has not fired. It hasn't changed course. It hasn't raised its voice. But the moment has shifted. The pressure is gone, and now it's moving in the opposite direction. At 1810, the tension starts to fade. Slowly, almost quietly. No sharp moves, no clear signals, just distance growing, steadily and intentionally. The ship that first broke formation reduces speed again, widening the gap by hundreds of meters. The second follows. The third stays parallel, but no longer tries to shape the space. Inside CIC, the screens confirm it, one update at a time. Distances increase. Closest approach projections stretch outward. The tight geometry that held for hours dissolves into open water. On the bridge, nothing changes. No turn, no acceleration. The carrier continues straight ahead as if nothing ever happened. At 1820, a radio transmission finally breaks the silence. Short, controlled. No aggression. No clear message beyond presence. It's logged and acknowledged, without reply. At 1835, the Seahawk completes its final orbit. Sensors capture the last moments. Then it turns smoothly back toward the carrier. No rush, no change in tone, just another flight. By 1850, the helicopter touches down. Rotors slow, engines wind down. No reaction from the deck, just another routine landing recorded in the log. At 1910, the Iranian ships continue to separate. One turns away from the carrier's path, another falls further behind. The third keeps a parallel course, no longer influencing anything. The sea opens again. At 1930, distances return to normal safety margins. Updates become less frequent. CIC settles back into its usual rhythm. By 2000, the carrier has fully passed through the area. The horizon ahead is clear. Its wake remains straight. At 2030, the situation is officially downgraded. Systems stay alert, but the tension is gone. No new orders. At 2100, the Iranian ships disperse completely. Each takes its own course, none intersecting with the carrier anymore. No final message, no closing words, it simply ends. At 2130, the logs are complete. Every second documented, every movement recorded. What remains is not a story, but a precise record of events. By 2200, the carrier continues exactly as planned from the start. Same speed, same heading, same mission, no shots fired, no contact made, no rules broken. 3 warships tried to restrict one carrier using positioning and pressure. In the end, they disengaged without achieving their goal. The carrier didn't rely on force. It didn't need to. This wasn't about firepower. It was about discipline. And discipline held. The sea returns to calm. The horizon clears. And the carrier moves on unchanged, leaving behind a message that carries farther than anything visible.